Hey, are you wanting to get into fix and flip, but you do not know where to get the money from? Well, today, stay tuned. I'm going to talk about the 4 different ways that you can get money to help grow your fix and flip business. Hey, this is Brandon with REsimpli, and today we're going to talk about the 4 ways that you can get financing done for your fix and flip properties. When you go to fix and flip, one of the biggest things that people talk about is, yeah, I can make offers for cash, but where do I get the cash from? A lot of people think, hey, as an investor, we just have millions of dollars sitting in the bank, we can just access it whenever we want, and then boom, we can just buy as many properties. Well, guess what? It is not that simple. But it is easy to go find the money that you need for your fix and flip business. The 4 types of financing that I want to talk about today are 1, private lending, 2, hard money lending, 3, bank financing, and 4, seller financing. So the first one that I want to talk about today is private lending. What that essentially is borrowing money from your friends, your family, and your network. And let's say you have a $300,000 house that you're wanting to purchase. You're generally still going to want to stick within a certain percentage value that you want to buy. So let's say 70% is kind of the golden rule that people stick to. So you're going to want to try to go out and borrow no more than $210,000. Hopefully, if you've gone back and watched our other videos and learned about making offers at 70% or below to getting a contract, this will all make sense to you. If you haven't, we'll have videos linked in below. But basically, what you want to do is go out and try to find a single person who has $210,000 that they're willing to lend. Now, I know you say, hey, that sounds really crazy. I don't know anybody that has $200,000 just laying around. You'd be really surprised how many people out there have the ability to lend you money as long as they know that you're what you would call a good operator. One of the best ways that I've learned to raise private money for our business is by showing people that we are actually doing the business. I post videos on my Instagram, I post them on my Facebook, I show examples of my HUDs, and then I also give examples of lenders getting their money back. And so when you structure private lending, you're still gonna have a note, which is basically an outline of how you're gonna pay the person back. You have a mortgage, which is tying the note to the property. That's the legal document stating, hey, we agree that all these terms are correct. And when I sell the property, these people are gonna get paid before I get paid. And it's done no different than a Wells Fargo or Bank of America if they're doing a traditional mortgage on your house. Now, number 2, if you actually do not have somebody in your network that you can go borrow this money from privately, the next thing you can look at is hard money lending. So there's a couple ways of hard money lenders. For us, we're fortunate and we have a local hard money lending company exactly where we live. For some people, they don't have that. And so they'll go out and find bigger companies that raise money and lend it to investors for fix and flip or rental purposes. So what a difference between a hard money lender and a private money lender is this hard money is a company that is lending on the asset and only the asset. Yes, sometimes they want to run your credit score, and that's just to determine what rate they're going to give you, but that does not generally affect their ability to lend or not to lend. If you have stellar credit, you might can get your interest rate down a little bit. If your credit's not as good, your interest rate may rise a little bit. In the grand scheme of things, over 6 months, 1 or 2%, 3% on an interest rate isn't that big of a deal. And so what this company is going to do is they're going to get all of the data that you have, your contract, your pictures, your scope of work, and then they're going to do their own due diligence, generally through an appraisal, a BPO, which is a broker's priced opinion. They're going to determine what the value of the house is. From there, that will determine how much money they're willing to lend. So if you underwrote the property properly and all your numbers are correct, then they generally will lend everything that you need to purchase the property. The one caveat to it is, if you're new with this hard money lender, or depending on their terms, they may want you to put some money down. So some lenders may do 100% of renovation and 90% of purchase price. And so for an example, if you're purchasing it for $150,000, they're gonna want you to put $15,000 down as 10% of the, kind of your skin in the game, whatever you want to call it. I know that can be a little challenging sometimes, but this is one of the easiest ways to get loans for fix and flip. The things that you want to pay attention to with hard money lenders are what are their points, which is a flat fixed interest that you're going to pay no matter how long you hold the property. Generally, you pay points at the time of closing, so it's a little bit more money down you need. They also are going to have processing fees or junk fees. These fees can start to add up. You know, they can be flat fees of $2,000, $1,500, $3,000, and then they can also have some other hidden fees. So as you're vetting out your hard money lenders, ask them, hey, what all fees am I gonna pay when it's time to buy the property? But I know for us in our fix and flip business, hard money lenders have allowed us to scale and do more properties at one time because of the ease of the transaction. Number 3 is bank financing, which out of the 4 ways of getting money is probably the hardest way to get money for fix and flip. Couple reasons. One, it's the slowest way to get the money. Banks are slow. If you use bank financing, unless you have lines of credit that you have access to, you're looking at 30 to 45 days for a close. Generally, working with a distressed seller, they're not going to give you 30 or 45 days for closing. Now, it's different if it's a on-market property or you're buying it for a rental, you know, that may work a little bit differently. But if you're working with somebody that is evicting somebody or needs to sell fast, they're generally going to want to have the property closed sooner than later. Banks are going to be your cheapest interest rate, they're going to be your lowest fees, but they're going to be your most difficult to work with because you also have to have an established relationship with that bank. You know, my hard money lender, I can walk in with a contract and say, hey, here's my contract, here's the information for the property, and within generally 48 to 72 hours, they can tell me if they're going to fund the property or not. A bank, it can take 2-3 weeks, and then from there, they're still gonna go through other loops to make you jump through. Number 4, my favorite, and probably the cheapest out of all of them, is seller financing. And so a lot of people don't think about the fact that the seller can be your own private bank. And so let's go back to the same strategy. We're buying a $300,000 house. We're going to be all in for $210,000. So let's say the seller has no mortgage or a small mortgage, and they're willing to finance the purchase price for you. So let's say you're putting $50,000 into it, and that would give you a $160,000 purchase price and a $50,000 renovation. And so what you would do is you'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm willing to give you so much money a month in interest towards your $160,000. You know, maybe even pay them a little bit more, $165,000. How I like to look at it is, what am I going to pay a lender? You know, let's say I'm going to pay a lender $20,000 for my interest. Can I give this seller an extra $10,000 and it'll save me 10 grand from the hard money lender, but it'll give the seller $10,000, and so it can be a win-win for both people. I'll talk some more about seller financing strategies in a later video. But basically, you would go to the seller and say, hey, for this property, I know I can pay you $160,000 in cash, but what if I can give you $170,000 over if you're willing to wait 6 months? And again, you can still have it structured with a note and a mortgage. It's attached to the property, so you can't sell it without paying them first. And then now all you have to do is come up with the renovation money. And so this is where private money can come back into play. You know, maybe you don't have somebody that can pay you the $210,000 for the total project, but you do have somebody who has $50,000 that's willing to partner with you on a loan. Potentially you can partner with a contractor. There's ways that you can make that work. So if you're looking to get into fix and flip and you're curious as to how to raise the money, these are the 4 ways that you can go get financing: seller financing, bank loans, hard money loans, or private loans. Stay tuned, subscribe to the REsimpli YouTube channel. We appreciate it, and our goal is to make real estate simple.